Welcome back. Well, it is the world's top-selling cancer drug, but Roche's Avastin is now in danger of losing its approval to treat breast cancer in the United States. Thousands of Americans are not happy about this. CNBC's Hampton Pearson is at the FDA headquarters right now. Here's the latest on this drug fight. Hampton.
Maria, here's what's at stake. If the FDA withdraws its approval of Avastin as a treatment for breast cancer, Roche and its Genentech unit could lose about $1 billion a year in revenue. As you mentioned, thousands of patients around the country who are worried about whether or not they'll have insurance coverage for a drug that costs about $88,000 a year. That insurance coverage could go away. So that set the stage for an emotional hearing here at FDA headquarters. Breast cancer survivors, their families, even their doctors, at times at odds with each other over what the FDA should do.
Should we spend time and lives on drugs like Avastin that do nothing to save women from the devastation of breast cancer? We really do deserve more.
I am completely disgusted to have to follow somebody like that. She apparently has not listened to the many women who are standing here today and have benefited from Avastin. My name is Kimberly Jewett, and I am a breast cancer survivor.
But FDA scientists and researchers say 3 years after Avastin won accelerated approval, it simply has not lived up to its promise.
We have carefully reviewed this data and conclude that no trial demonstrated an improvement in overall survival, no trial has demonstrated an improvement in health-related quality of life, and no trial has confirmed the magnitude of benefit.
Tomorrow, Genentech will take center stage to make its case why the FDA should not follow through on an earlier decision to withdraw that accelerated approval of Avastin as a treatment for breast cancer. We should know by this time tomorrow, Maria, exactly what the advisory committee will recommend to FDA Commissioner Margaret Hamburg, who ultimately will make the final decision. Back to you.
All right, Hampton, thank you. So should the FDA allow patients to decide for themselves whether they want to take the drug or not? Peter Pitts is the president and co-founder of the Center for Medicine in the Public Interest. He was a former associate commissioner for external relations at the FDA. Gregory Conko is senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. He recently wrote an op-ed on the Avastin debate for the Wall Street Journal entitled, "There's No Average Cancer Patient." Gentlemen, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Gregory, why do you believe the FDA should not just look at the data when making this decision?
I believe the FDA absolutely should be looking at the data, but the data only take you so far. At the end of the day, the FDA is making a judgment that the risks of Avastin outweigh its benefits. We think that metastatic breast cancer patients who are have a 90% likelihood of dying from the disease, ought to be given the choice to take a drug that may have minimal benefits, but for a small percentage of these patients is going to work terribly well.
And Peter, if patients are aware of the risks presented by the data on Avastin, why shouldn't it be up to them if they want to expose themselves to those risks if it means just a slight improvement in quality of life or buying some time that they otherwise would not have?
Well, FDA clearly has the authority to decide what indications a drug has, but I also think it's got to demonstrate the moral authority and say that even though the data is not robust relative to breast cancer, it is effective in a small subpopulation, and that doctors should still be able to discuss with their patients having Avastin as a cure, not as a cure, as a very robust treatment, which they will. I think it's important to understand that even if the FDA removes the indication, doctors can still prescribe Avastin for women with breast cancer. But rather than simply saying no, rather than simply being kind of the nabobs of negativism, the FDA needs to step forward and use its authority to work with industry and work with academics and work with patients to develop the diagnostic tools that will help people understand which medicine is right for which patient in which dose at the right time.
So, Gregory, have we seen an issue like this before? Is it possible the public pressure from the hearings could actually change the course of decision-making for the FDA?
Well, it's not very common, but yes, public pressure on FDA has changed the course of decisions in the past. There's a multiple sclerosis drug called Tysabri that a couple of years ago was actually taken off the market by the FDA, but a tremendous backlash from MS patients on the FDA caused it, in conjunction with the manufacturer, to bring the drug back about 18 months later. So there is precedent here. It's, as I said, it's not very common, but it can happen.
Yeah, but I mean, the FDA, Peter, is moving toward removing the breast cancer from the Avastin label. If doctors, though, believe it will still help their patients, won't they still prescribe it?
They most definitely will. And the important thing about pressure is that it's already working. Earlier on in this whole debate, the FDA didn't even want to have public testimony at the hearing that is happening today. They changed their mind, and that was the right decision. But at the end of the day, FDA has to make its decision based on the best science that's available to it. And the bad news is that right now FDA is dealing with very 20th century regulatory science methods. It really needs to move forward and develop the tools for 21st century drug regulatory science. And that's kind of the opening shot of Avastin. It's going to tell the agency it needs to do a better job relative to the tools that it uses to make its decisions.
Is there an insurance element to this?
Oh, it's absolutely huge. I mean, if the FDA removes this indication, insurance companies may say, well, since it's off-label, we don't want to reimburse it. Medicare and Medicaid may make the same decisions. I think it's very important for the FDA to be publicly on record saying that for some patients, this treatment is efficacious, and that insurance companies still should seriously consider reimbursing for it. And Secretary Sebelius, I think, needs to be on the forefront of that. She's been very good on this issue, saying that Medicare and Medicaid would continue to reimburse until the FDA makes its decision. I think she should go on record saying that they're going to continue to reimburse after the decision.
And you agree with that, Gregory?
Well, I think it's entirely reasonable for payers, whether they're public or private, to question the value of a drug that we know only works for a small number of patients. But I think it ought to be done on a case-by-case basis. And it's unfortunate that the financing angle is brought into this question of what the FDA does. The FDA is not legally permitted to consider cost when it's making its safety and efficacy decisions, its approval decisions. And I think we really need to focus on whether or not patients are going to be able to make a choice, whether the decision to weigh the safety and efficacy is going to be in the hands of patients or if it's going to be in the hands of government bureaucrats.
All right, we'll leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm sorry, did you want to add something real quick?
Yeah, that's a crucial point. Safety and efficacy can never be sullied by comparative and clinical effectiveness. What's best for the patient can't be trumped by cost.
Thanks, gentlemen. We'll see you soon. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next.